Advanced Heroquest Gaming Aids. Monster Matrix. O Creator, can monsters exist in the sight of Him who alone knows how they were invented, how they invented themselves, and how they might not have invented themselves? Charles Baudelaire. So, I finally got round to creating something I've wanted to make for a while now. A gaming aid to help increase the flexibility of the monster generation process, whilst at the same time preserving the actual original monster matrices mechanic. Why, you may ask? And that's a very good question in my opinion. Well, like everything in Advanced Heroquest, the encounters the heroes have are randomly generated. I've no problem with this, of course. It's a part of something that I love in the game. However, what monsters are encountered are primarily governed by 3 monster matrices, with a secondary table for specialist monsters also coming to play under certain circumstances. This was something I found an encumbrance. Now, there is a table for each of the 3 primary locations that heroes will encounter at monsters. A chance encounter in a newly revealed corridor, for instance, in a monster lair, or in one of the quest rooms. Each of these matrices are basically tables that have a list of groups of monsters on them up to a given point value, and each is assigned a particular roll of the die. The lower the number, the weaker the enemies. In pre-written adventures, such as the quest for the Shattered Amulet from the original rulebook, these matrices are already filled in. For any other sort of adventure, the game's master writes and completes the matrices before an expedition begins using the blank matrices that can be found at the back of the rulebook. And, to be honest, this is what we've done up until this point. It is worth noting that during the game, it is also the game's master who rolls the dice to see what enemies the heroes encounter. In essence, monster generation is completely under the purview of the game's master, but it is not without restraints. Okay, so here is my angle on this. This particular way of doing things does ostensibly give a lot of agency to the GM before the game, but it then slaps them on the wrist and removes that decision-making power during the game itself. This dichotomy is something I wanted to resolve in making this particular gaming aid. I wanted to shift more of the decision-making into the gaming time itself, as opposed to doing it all beforehand. I in no way wanted to change the mechanics, simply shift when the decisions are made so as to be more responsive and empowering for the GM in the moment. Okay, so if this interests you, please listen on. Okay, so let's start at the beginning so I can better explain what I mean. Every monster in the game has an assigned points value based on their stats and abilities. When the heroes encounter some monsters, the GM, the game's master, rolls a d12 and consults the appropriate table. As mentioned before, there is one for each of the 3 locations where monsters will be encountered. Either in a corridor, these are wandering monsters, a lair, or in a quest room. Each value on the dice is equivalent to a total points value for the monsters encountered. Low numbers give low points, and higher values generate higher points. This is the salient feature of these tables, and the main one that I wanted to work with. The matrices also list, or perhaps prescribe is a better word, what monsters each points value includes, and these are chosen by the GM before the game begins. It is this particular part that I find too restrictive. Sometimes the models I rolled for are already in use, or the location suits a different configuration of monsters than I chose before the game. This inflexibility is the part I wanted to unshackle myself from. So, my very first step was to collate all the data from the matrices into a single table, which you can see here. Right then, now I've all but buried the lead, here was my idea. I wanted to create a set of 12 cards to use to generate all of the encounters. Additionally, so that they could be used in any adventure, I opted to have each only display the total points value of the monsters encountered, not the monsters themselves. So, what happens is that when the heroes either encounter some wandering monsters, enter a lair or a quest room, the top card of the deck is flipped, rather than rolling on the monster matrices in the book. I think it's best if we look at some examples to see what happens next. It'll be easier to explain it that way. The heroes have reached a T-junction. It reveals a corridor and some wandering monsters lying in wait for them. At this juncture, we flip the top card of the Monster Matrix deck of cards. Each card is split into 3 layers. The top is for wandering monsters, the middle is for layers, and the bottom half is for quest rooms. In our example, we are looking at the top of the card. Wandering monsters, in this case. As you can see, it states that the total points value, or PV, is 4. And it also states that the heroes will find 40 gold crowns worth of treasure on the corpses of the monsters if they slay them all. With the card revealed, it is then up to the GM to select the models from their collection equivalent to the total points value stated. It's as simple as that. Each monster has already been assigned a points value, as we saw earlier, and for this example, as this adventure is being fought in a Skaven warren, the GM selects 2 Skaven warriors, 1 point each, and a champion for 2 points. But basically, the GM can choose whatever they have to hand up to the total in any combination they wish. Let's look at a different example now. Had the same card been drawn upon opening the door to a lair, then we would be using the middle section of the card. As you can see, this states that the total points value, or PV, is 8, and the hero will find 80 gold crowns worth of treasure on the corpses of the enemies he slays. Again, it is then up to the GM to select the models from their collection equivalent to the total points value. This time around, our GM selects 4 Skaven warriors, 1 point each, a champion for 2 points, and a sentry for another 2 points, to make a total of 8. Job done. You may have noticed that on this particular card, the layer and quest entries have an asterisk. When this happens, the GM also rolls a D12. On an 8 or more, the Games Master gets to add a specialist monster on top of the total monster points value. This might be an assassin, or a low-level large monster, or perhaps an enemy with a special weapon. It does not include, though, enemy characters. These are still brought into play via dungeon counters. Watch this space for something on dungeon counters in the future. Anyway, characters aside, again, the Games Master is at liberty to choose whatever they have available. There's some examples in this specialist Skaven matrix if you need some ideas. And that is pretty much it. I think this is just an easier way to do things. It doesn't require filling out long matrices before a game, and it also allows the GM to go with the flow of the game as it unfolds. The GM merely needs to prepare their models and have their stats to hand. As with our dungeon generator cards, there's a free PDF link in the video description to download these cards. Each has a front and a back. You simply print out each sheet onto a piece of paper, fold it in half, and either sandwich and glue a piece of card between the 2 sides, or simply glue them together, and then cut each card out and laminate them. Well, this is what we have done anyway, and there is one reason in particular for having done it this way. Just in case it wasn't obvious, the reason I also included the treasure value is so that we can easily calculate the gold accumulated during an expedition without lots of paperwork. As you saw, we have laminated our cards. So, after a particular cohort of monsters has been defeated, as the GM, I can simply put a circle around the treasure value with a whiteboard marker directly onto the card. The card then goes into the discard pile. Then, after the game is complete, I can quickly calculate how much gold has been earned by just looking at all the cards in the discard pile and adding together all of the values that have been circled. As with previous and future gaming aids, it's all about saving time. Now, one last thing. This is in essence a gaming aid for the games master and for games run by a games master. If you are playing solo or playing without a GM, these cards may be too open-ended. In those kinds of games, it might be worth simply preparing and completing one of the original monster matrices. Thanks for watching, and as always, may the dice gods bless your rolls.